In Dragon's Dogma, you can either be a melee class and dish out physical damage, or stay at range and cast magic damage. The Mystic Spear Hand is a combination of both, giving you the options of fighting in the front line or just hang out in the back and support your pawns. It's got high mobility, high strength stats, so basically it means you can do a lot of physical damage. And it's also got a lot of range attacks. All these stats make it the most versatile vocation in the game. So let's go over all the skills and their advantages and how you can use them to the best of your situations. There's a variety of builds you can play with this vocation, especially at high levels. So I'll show you the most optimal combination of skills and item choices, as well as team composition for each style of gameplay. Alright, so let's get right into it. First off is your offhand attack, the Magic Bolt. I'm just going to use my own terms for all these skills because I can't pronounce any of them. Alright, so this is like your crowd control ability. It can stagger enemies and slow down bosses, but this skill is more for your pawns than you because you're casting it from range, while your pawns go in for the kill. It does no damage but makes up for it by being completely free to cast, and you can also just hold it in your hand and walk around town like a badass. I mean, look at this, doesn't that make you look like a Super Saiyan? But yeah, it's got 3 levels. You can spam the first level bolt, and it will stagger all the small enemies like goblins and bandits. If you hold it for 5 seconds, it will charge to the second level, and this is your scatter bolt. And this one will actually stun the enemies for a few seconds, and you can press the same button again to stun other enemies around that first target. When you hit them with a scatter bolt, you can press your jump button to teleport to them, and at which point you always want to hit them with a heavy attack because that will do the most damage to staggered enemies. And if you hold it for another 5 seconds, you'll get the supercharge bolt. This one just stuns enemies for even longer, I think around 10 seconds or so. And it'll stun mini-bosses for a brief second, but doesn't work against dragons. Alright, so now this skill is kind of weird, because in theory, it should be like an S-tier skill. I mean, free crowd control and has a mobility option. Like, what can beat that? But in practice, it's actually pretty terrible. It is very inefficient and takes a lot of moving around, because you don't want to waste your supercharge on a single enemy or something that's already dying. And when fighting bosses, you don't really have time to charge it unless you're playing a support build where your pawns do all the work. And most of all, there is one skill that does everything your bolt can do, but better. And that's the dragon's, I'm just going to call it the dash. So this dash has mobility and crowd controlling effects. You teleport to your target and stagger them and also do pretty good damage. But the best thing about it is it auto-selects targets for you. And this can also be a flying target like the Harpy. So if you're fighting a group of enemies and you're just too lazy to think, just use dash, and you will literally fly to an enemy and slap them. This is also useful when fighting bosses since it can get you to the weak points much faster than other vocations. So basically this is your bread and butter skill, and you can't play Mystic Spear Hand without it. And if you don't plan to support your pawns, I don't see a reason you want to get used to casting the bolt. It's just not worth the 5 seconds. Alright, next is the Sky Dragon attack. This is like your finisher skill. What's so good about this skill is it can break your stun. And no other skill in your arsenal can do that. So when you get hit by a bigger enemy, like the armored lizard, you'll get staggered and they can follow up with another attack and just keep going and you'll die. When that happens, you can just cast the Sky Dragon and get out of that situation, going back on the offensive. So basically this is like your safety net. If you spend a lot of time in the front line, this skill is a must-have. There's no other way around it. And now we have the ultimate skill, the Wild Fury. This skill allows you to dash between enemies dealing both physical and magic damage and basically put them in a stun lock. As amazing as it looks, this skill is unfortunately not as effective as you want it to be. First of all, the dash is super short, and you can't get to a flying target with it. It does very little damage to bosses because to kill a boss, you need concentrated damage. And this skill will make you dash all over the place, and that's just really bad in a boss fight. What makes it worse is the stamina consumption. This skill drains your stamina with every consecutive cast, and a lot of it. If you're under level 40, don't even think about using this at all. It's just not worth it, and will put you in more trouble than benefit you. Because, like, if you run out of stamina mid-fight, you'll stagger yourself, and the enemy still got like half its health and will slap the hell out of you. When you're level 40, you'll have more stamina, and will need to wear the Ring of Momentum for even more stamina. But even then, you'll do more damage with the dash and the Sky Dragon attack anyway. So while it looks cool and all, this skill falls really short, and I think you'll be better off with any other skill. Alright, so now we can talk about the builds. As a Mystic Spear hand, you have two different playstyle. You can either go offense or stay behind and support your pawns. For offense, you're going to need to have a fighter, a warrior, and a thief to fight with you in the front line. Your main pawn needs to be a thief, alright? This is important because you need them to have the Smoke Shroud ability. This will keep your enemies stunned and you can just dash around and kill them. You can actually just go ahead and remove the other skill slots and just have Implicate and Smoke Shroud. That way your thief can spam Smoke Shroud and keep stun locking everything. For your other pawn, you need a mage for the healing. The other skills don't really matter much, and you actually don't need an elemental buff either, since you'll be doing a lot of magic damage on your own. For the skills, you need to have your Dash and Sky Dragon as default, and for your power move, you can take Magic Spear. I think this skill is really strong. It's a single target attack that you can supercharge, similar to the Heavenly Shot of the Archer. It does drain a lot of stamina, and that's why you should only cast it from a distance, maybe where your mage is standing. But yeah, this skill is great against armored enemies like the rock lizards and big bosses, because it actually lets you aim so you can just target the weak points and deal a ton of damage. At high levels, this will one-shot most enemies, and you can take out ogres in a few hits, so it's a must-have for an offensive build. So for your last skill, you can take, let's just call it Life Steal. This is like your recovery skill. It refills your stamina while also slowing down your target, so like semi-crowd control. The weird thing about this is it actually requires stamina to use, and quite a bit too, so don't wait until you're completely drained to use it. Alright, so that's the offensive build. Now for the support build, the playstyle is going to be a bit weird. So you're going to want 3 melee pawns, a fighter, warrior, and a thief. These guys are going to do most of the work, so you want as many offensive skills on these pawns as you can. For the skills, you'll be using Mirror Shield, Moment's Charge, and Devout along with your Dash. Your Mirror Shield will protect them from any damage. It only lasts 10 seconds, but you can keep casting it since you won't be spending any stamina fighting. And you can also keep enemies stunned with Moment's Charge, as it gives you an instant supercharged bolt. But like, you don't want to rely on this too much, because it can wear down your healing potions. Lastly, the Devout skill will basically keep enemies from chasing you down, or it can also help your team do a little more damage. Doesn't really do anything to bosses, but when fighting groups, especially harpies, this will come in handy. It pretty much picks up any small enemies and throw them against some other targets. You can pick up rocks and stuff too, and it auto-selects targets, so no need for any aiming. And as far as gear go, you want to use the Dead Ringer Spear. It's the strongest spear until you beat the game and get the Lindworm Fang. If you don't have Dead Ringer, you can go to Batal and buy a decent spear from the vendor instead. You can find Dead Ringer from killing dragons or buy it in Volcanic Island. Alright, so that's all for the Mystic Spear hand. I hope you enjoy playing it as much as I did and become the true Super Saiyan you were meant to be. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.